Children in Armed Conflict, next on International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs at UWM and Milwaukee Public Television present International Focus, a global magazine linking Wisconsin and the world.
Welcome to International Focus. I'm Robert RICIGLIANO, Director of the Institute of World Affairs at UWM. An estimated 250,000 children under the age of 18 are thought to be fighting in conflicts around the world. In Uganda, the Lord's Resistance Army, a rebel group, has routinely abducted children since 1986, forcing tens of thousands of children to serve as child soldiers and sex slaves. Victor Ochen was born and raised in northern Uganda. He grew up in the midst of the conflict, witnessing firsthand the grave human rights abuses perpetrated by the LRA rebels. In 2003, his brother and cousin were abducted and have not been heard from since. In 2005, he helped establish the African Youth Initiative Network to mobilize youth and community members to promote peace and justice in northern Uganda. In addition to delivering life-saving health assistance, the organization works to foster tolerance and reconciliation and build sustainable capacity among young people and their communities. Victor Ochen, welcome to International Focus.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Victor, the things that you've been through, the things we just briefly mentioned in our intro, are events that people living in the United States or in the West have really no concept of. The reality of it. Mm-hmm. Could you help us understand a little bit of the background, so the fighting in northern Uganda, the violence? Give us a little bit of a background to that, how that's come about.
Yeah, Uganda, as you could be knowing already, was a country colonized by British, and they got its independence in 1962. And since then, it's been really through the bloody history of conflicts where there's never been any peaceful power transition from one government to another. It's always been militarily, and Uganda contributes to a greater percentage of the kind of coups that has taken place in Africa. So since then, all this conflict has been a big setback in terms of national development and also the human security. And the biggest problem has been focusing mainly on children, women and children who completely know nothing to do with politics. In relation to the Lord's Resistance Army, which came into force in 1986 when the present government took over, the President Museveni's government took over in 1986. As soon as it took over, the Lord's Resistance Army came in and started, fighting against the government. And since then, they have been abducting children, they have been abducting women, killing so many people, and all this has been like, is it a war? Does it have any political agenda? It had completely no clear political agenda, but it's the war that has been so much targeting at the innocent communities, killing massively, abducting kids and women, raping, and so many other things. So, since 1986, the total population that was displaced was close to 2.5 million people was displaced. And I think it's spent like about over 10 years in the refugee camp or in the internally displaced people camps. And as you're saying, I happen to be born in this community. I never went anywhere. I was raised there. And the life experience in the refugee camp or internally displaced people's camp is what I went through. I saw many of my age mates, children like me, fail completely to make it in life because they couldn't afford to go to school. They had to struggle with their security. Parents alike didn't have any capacity to support their children. And in this situation where children started looking at their parents as they have failed them, and also parents look at children as their burdens, because it was hard for you to imagine your parents or your mother would come back alive if she goes looking for food.
Right.
And this has been really horrible. A lot of children did not study. We lost the generation. My generation never made it, actually, in terms of education. It was crippled. They were left with almost no room for, making choices. There were only opportunities like for you to be safe. You either accept to be a child soldier or accept to stay home. But with all the risk involved, you might be abducted any time. So people were really into their own security, struggling with their own acceptance, security, feeding, accommodation. We spent years without sleeping in the houses. We would sleep in the bush every day because in the fear of abduction.
Right.
Malnutrition was high. kids died. Malaria killed so many people. And all these other situations that were really compounded, and the effect of the war generally affected the children the most.
So, this is an environment where you have the Lord's Resistance Army, which has been fighting, and many people really are now wondering what it is that they're fighting for. They initially talked about wanting to institute a government based on the Ten Commandments in the Bible, and now many people say, well, since 1986, we're talking 25 years of violence, and as you say, the victimization has been incredible. So people are saying, we're not really sure what this is about, and then you have this population that you describe, just caught in the middle.
Yeah. The point is like, basing on the Ten Commandments, which they came in to start fighting on, they started by brainwashing the community. I remember some point when I used to go to school, because I studied, I had to struggle when I was living in the IDP camps. I started going to school for the first year, and then I dropped out completely for 3 more years without going to school. I was 7 already. I made 10 when I was not so sure whether I was going to study or not, but it was a big challenge, and likewise, my age mates had given up completely. So, in the process, I remember when the Lord's Resistance Army could come in and say, if you're found holding a pen, it will blow like a bomb. So, this was a tactic to kind of secure their interest in scaring everybody from taking a pen to go to school. And all this was the kind of brainwashing attitude, the mindset which they created in everybody, knowing that they would overthrow the government, who are saying this will have enough weapons, they can use the pens to become weapons and all these things. But the facts about whether it happened or not, no one knows. But these were the rumors being spread. The LRA commanders are using supernatural power, that they can change anything. You hold a gun, gun won't shoot you, won't do what. And this really provoked many people who were really held informed, they accepted to join, or they were forcefully, forced into this, and then they died. A lot of them died.
So if you're a young boy, 8 to 12 years old, while in the U.S. or in the West, people at that age would be thinking, what sport do they want to play? What subject do they like? You have people in your generation are thinking, well, do I become a child soldier voluntarily, or do I risk
being abducted
forcibly and being forced to do it?
I think that's a dilemma, because we didn't count on education anymore. I remember when, after struggling to go through primary education, I was supposed to take 7 years, but I had to miss some classes, and it was less than 7 years. After going through qualifying for the high school, the dilemma was we had to pay ourselves in the secondary school or in the high school, but we didn't have money, and we had to really start struggling to raise money to pay yourself. You can't blame your parents that they are failing you, because parents are equally unable to even feed you. So, and the only choice the parents would do is if you can stay at home, stay. If you want to go and join this army, please go. Or you'll be abducted. But my mother was such a great woman. She stood with us and said, no, look, situation is challenging, but it will be over one day. So what to do? Stay firm. If you can work hard, protect yourself. Don't voluntarily join army or whatever. You can remain, it will be fine one day. So we stood our time, and we started burning coal to raise money to pay school. And this was really hard. Africa has really huge trees. They've become logs, not just poles. We have to cut this not using machines, but using the axes and pangas to burn charcoal to raise money to pay school. And everyone would ask, why are you wasting money? It's not sustainable, because you struggle for 1 year or for 6 months paying all this, using your energy, and you lose out. You can't sustain it, and it will be a waste of time. So all this, there was completely no room for anyone to make any choice. No one thought I would leave the next day. Here, I say American people would think what will I be in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years now, things like that. But ours was, will I make it tomorrow?
Will I be alive tomorrow?
Will I be alive tomorrow? Will I not be abducted? What will I eat tonight?
Yeah.
We survived on 1 meal a day for long. A situation where you survive on 1 meal without going for breakfast, without anything, but a meal that is not really a huge type of good food you are eating here. It's also just something to fill up the stomach. So all this is being a dilemma which left many people unable to make choices.
It's wonderful that you are here now, and made it through that.
I'm more than amazed.
Now, there are other, when people are abducted, or either young boys who are forced to be soldiers or young girls who are forced to be sex slaves, I've heard people say, well, why don't they just leave? Why don't they just, they don't want to do this. Why don't the kids just leave? And talk a little bit, how does a movement like the LRA brainwash these kids once they've abducted them and turn them into fighters?
Oh, yeah. The kids always doesn't have choices on whether they want to live or not. First of all, you are abducted, you are tied for several days, you are caned, you are tortured, you are subjected to kill your own people who tries to escape. On many occasions, kids who, maybe before even you go, they will make you to kill your parents, let you kill your teachers, let you kill your friends, so that you feel so haunted that you don't want to come back home. Because assuming you were forced to kill your parents in the face of your other brothers and sisters, how will they see when you come back home? These are the kind of subjection which they created in a way that would not make any child be willing to come back home. Secondly, even if they had interest of coming back home, they were protected in so many ways, and they were walked long distances, in 1,000 kilometers, walking in few days actually. And then you reach there when you can't walk. So many kids lost out because they couldn't walk. Their legs were swollen. They are thirsty. You go where there's no food, entering through ambushes. So many died. And you start thinking, if I escape from these all long distances from southern Sudan to Uganda, will I make it or not? You'll die. And then another level of brainwashers they did was like, they would tell these kids, if you go back to Uganda or you go back, the government soldiers will kill you. So kids grew up knowing that when I was taken up from my home, I was made to kill my own people. I'm always taken to loot and burn things like this and destroy, of which I am wanted. If I go back, the government troops will kill me. So these are the kind of the dilemmas, and they inflected in them that this is the spiritual power. If you try to escape, you'll be arrested, and once you're arrested, you'll be killed. On many occasions, they arrest these people who try to escape and makes these kids killed to scare them that if you try it, it will be you next time.
I mean, as frightened as they may have been before, now once they're in, the LRA sort of makes them sever all ties to their previous life.
That's the point, and they torture them too much. They create in them the heart of revenge. Catch you today will make you be tortured severely and say, okay, fine, next time you're going to catch someone, you also revenge on another person. So that heart of revenge is really what generates sometimes their heart of staying, distance, getting back, possibilities of finding your families alive, and possibilities of, being attacked by the government, and all these things were the threats and fear created in these children.
And we had just about a minute or so before we have to take a short break. Just quickly, how long might a child soldier actually then be in a movement like the LRA? Until they're young adults, until they die? How long are they?
A lot of them depends on how lucky you are. Sometimes you're taken today, you enter the ambush, or you fall sick. There were many serious cholera outbreak were in the bush. So many died, instantly or after some times. But also, a number of them spent years, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years before they came back. I've met so many who said, I spent over 15 years in captivity, and now they are no longer children, and they are already commanders. All this sort of horrible situation, they tell you that when we went to your place, we killed everybody, so there's no need for you to go back. So, heart of coming back is a problem, and meanwhile they would want to. They take longer, depends on how they're lucky.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about, so what do you do now? Once they are back, how do we get them back into society?
To
our viewers, we'll be back in just a moment on International Focus.
Good.
The Institute of World Affairs presents our community with a range of public programs relating to global issues, U.S. foreign policy, and the world economy. For more information about the Institute of World Affairs, call 414-229-3220 or visit our website at www.iwa.uwm.edu.
Welcome back to International Focus. We're talking about children in armed conflict with Victor Ochen, Director of the Youth Initiative Network from Uganda. Victor, I wanted to, just one other question. We talked some about the boys and the plight they face as being child soldiers. Young girls are usually taken in to sometimes be soldiers, but sometimes to be sex slaves. So do they face the same indoctrination? What's their life like?
In most cases, every woman who was taken to the captivity was allocated a man forcefully. Sometimes you go to a man with over 5 women or 7 women. So
a fighter might have 5, 6, 7 wives.
Coin himself had over 100 wives. The commander of the LRA had over 100 wives. I have met so many girls who came back and they were once the wives of the coin. Because they had to sort you, you look beautiful, you're going to the top commander, you look like this, you're going here. So most of them were abused. But again, when they come back home, it's hard for them to open. Because stigma, sexual harassment, abuses include much more deeper stigma than the physical injuries you're seeing here. But when we talk to them, because our interest or our work here is we do more in mobilizing and supporting their health and psychosocial rehabilitation. And this one includes supporting those women, those children, those men who suffered the burns and they are healing in contracted ways, who sustain gunshots, they're living with chronic injuries that calls for attention, and also those ones who are mutilated and they require reconstructive plastic surgeries. These are the kind of support we give. And also, we have many cases of women who are raped and they require gynecological repair, fistula, things like that. It's massive, but they cannot really come openly to talk about that. We have suffered sexual harassment because of ABC. But I've not taken time counseling someone. They will present that I have, I need maybe bullet extraction. I have retained bullets. But when you take time, you go with someone to the hospital, you win their trust because it's all about trauma. You show to them that you are caring, you win their trust, they will openly tell them that, look, besides this, I have another case altogether. And then you'll find series of situations. We have so many of them whom we detected in the process of offering the, maybe bullet extractions from their body, and we find them they're HIV positive. They're suffering from fistula. And all these are the situations which they don't come openly until you take time to sit one-on-one with them. Sure. So it's quite alarming.
So there's on the one side there's a whole host of physical damage or injury that they face, whether it's HIV or other infection or physical mutilation or bullets, etc. And then there's the psychological trauma that they face. And I want to read you back something that you wrote. It appears on the Enough website for those that want to look for it. And I think it frames the situation and the challenge well. It says, you said, what has happened in northern Uganda over the last 20 years is shocking and unbelievable, but it has happened. Nothing can cool down the burning feelings of the people pained and hurt by this war. So how do you, given that challenge, how do you move forward?
I think it's out of that challenge that created the conviction, the heart of love for change in the situation. As being someone who is pained and hurt by the suffering of our own people and our own suffering, we survived to where we are today. I'm happy to be here. I couldn't expect I would be speaking English, first of all. But all these are the convictions that if you have the heart of love, you would need it change. You would need it off. And then that's why I came up and said, look, we can't really keep seeing this happen. We have blamed the international community enough. We've felt they have kind of isolated our cases. What could have been done in northern Uganda whatever would have been avoided, but no one took interest in doing that. So that extent of neglect was too much that we needed to get something going on our own. So it's the conviction you feel from within you that you need to change the situation, must never happen. And that's really, it gave me myself actually more heart of confidence and more heart of hope that maybe we can do something on our own. And I found, I realized after forming this organization, African Youth Initiative Network, have seen potentials that exist locally. It's just disempowered. People are disoriented. People doesn't know they can do it, that the truth is they can. Talking to them, inspiring them, it changes their thinking, and that gives them more motivation.
What inspires them? Again, people hearing this story are going to be thinking for themselves. They would be crushed psychologically and physically. They would be crushed.
Yeah.
And you're talking about empowering and inspiring. How do you inspire someone who's been through this?
There's the heart for humanity, which if you feel like you own someone's situation, like for me, I was not abducted at one point, but I endured all that everyone went through. But I've always seen, say now, for how long are we going to keep killing ourselves? For how long are we going to fail to actually be even the local possible leaders, possible in our community? We will be led anyway. And then the inspiration came like, if we feel we love this country, if we feel we love our people, our homes, it is sad to see us be killing our parents all the time. I think it's sad for a kid to feel like being responsible for killing his own parents. This is really crazy, and that's really what you'd want never to happen again. And then, why would we take peace as a foreigner that comes and goes away? Let peace be with us if there is need for what we can do. And also staying for 1 or 2 days. When you're staying at home, you feel the heart of willing to stay at home. But because you are not allowed, you cannot stay at home. You're forced to go. And what would be the option that for you to bring this? So, the heart of youth or young people or children taking part in changing the processes that brings about peace is what the big inspiration is all about. We need love. We need to be able to go to school. Children needs to be educated. Children needs to be taken care of. The parents have seen their children died when they're too young, so bitterly, and the parents themselves suffered helplessly trying to raise these kids. So you would see everyone is caught up in this situation. Parents equally, like the children, are equally defeated. So we're looking at how can young people try to change this, because we feel like the adults have not just failed us, but maybe situation made it impossible for them to do something. What about the young generation? We need to avoid transitioning from the concept that had killed the continent, that had killed the community, transferring from old to young. So this is what we really needed, as in terms of changing the thinking, changing the participation, and the prospect for development.
That's this heart of change you're talking about.
Yeah,
people have a belief that as bad as the situation was, all they can do is make it better for themselves and for others, I suppose.
Like, maybe example is like, I have seen the practical human rights and human dignity. After working with kids, I have a success story of actually a kid I helped this year. I struggled with this kid for like 2 years. He was a kid who was shot when he was 7 months at the back of his mom, because the African women carry children in their back, wrapped up in the sort of towel. And then this kid, together with her mom, were moving together, in a group of 10. Everyone was killed except this kid. And they spent a night in the back of his dead mom. He also sustained a gunshot in the thigh. And then all this, the local area health centers couldn't afford to treat, because he had the retained bullet. It developed like for 5 years. The kid was in severe chronic situation. In 2007, when we were trying to look for children to help, we went and found him in an isolated small grass thatched house, which Africans, always, African village lives in. You could tell there was something wrong in that community, in that family. Found the kid was alone in the room. Everyone had decided the kid, the father and the stepmom wouldn't really wish to be identified, but like by virtue that they're attached to, that was the only way. So suffering for 5 years with all this pain, chronic situation, septic discharges from the leg, from the pain, malnourished and all the things. When we picked the kid, struggled to move around, stench as horrible as no one would imagine, no doctor could help. They would say the only option is to amputate the kid. But we struggled, said, no, you can't amputate him. Let's do something. All they could do, give painkillers, which would not help anyway, because he needed, quite intensive, a reconstructive surgery. A doctor helped us this year, Dr. Patrick Fio, a general surgeon who really worked on this kid. And the kid right now is playing football. Need has changed. And I made the point, like this year on the review conference in Kampala, I made the kid met the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, and my president. They didn't know why I brought that kid to them, because we organized this War Victims Day football match, which was to raise the global awareness of the state of victims of armed conflicts around the world. So I brought the kid, was one of the 2 kids I brought him to welcome the top leaders. They didn't know why I brought him, but I just knew it myself. So this is a practical part of human dignity and human right. I'm saying, if the kid smiles and start asking for toys, start asking for going to school. He never went to school. He's 7 years now, but now he's willing to go to school.
The desire to do it. And Victor, unfortunately, we have about a minute or so left, and I'm just very curious about you personally. What does the work you're doing now mean to you personally, in light of all that you've been through, all that you've seen?
I think, to me, I'm first of all very humbled being in the studio here in America, and it pays to do good work. We are all human beings in all ways, so it's all about taking someone's situation. I feel so responsible about the situation in Africa. The life I see so many people living today in armed conflict, as a result of war and things like that, is the life I lived not so long ago. So, on my own, I'm so inspired in a way that I feel I must be a source of change in my community. And I cannot do it alone. It involves mobilizing people who are victims, young people who really need new thinking and all this concept, to make sure that they understand and take it and own the process. So that's why I'm really very happy with the partnership, like Center for Global Health and Peace Building, who came in and they're doing great work. Yeah. I'm so grateful to Dr. Tom Ferrer, who is the president of the Underwood Foundation, and also, he's based in Wisconsin here, and Wolfgang Smith, who is the chairman, Governors Commission. Yeah.
Victor, thank you so much for your work. The African Youth Initiative Network, your organization. Victor, thank you again so much for being International Focus and the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
For information about the Institute of World Affairs and its many programs, or to become a member of the Institute, call 414-229-3220, or visit us at our website,